Dodgers top prospect Dalton Rushing has thoroughly impressed thus far in spring training. With Will Smith dealing with a lingering ankle injury, could Rushing see significant playing time this year at the big league club? That and more on this inaugural episode of something I haven't come up with a name with yet. My name is Kevin Skinner, and I'm a dude with arguably the most divisive intervention ever, the microphone. You can find me at Twitter, at Skinner7Kevin. If you've made it this far, consider subscribing and hitting the like button. If you find me distasteful, dislike the video and yell into the void. We're here, though, to talk about Dalton Rushing. The 24-year-old left-handed hitting prospect has made the most of his appearances this spring with a 333, 733, 500 slash line in 15 plate appearances. Showing off elite plate discipline. That's how you get to a 733 OBP, because he has 7 walks to only 7 strikeouts. It's pretty impressive for someone as young as him. The Dodgers drafted the Tennessee native out of Louisville University in the second round of the 2022 MLB draft. Basically, as soon as they drafted him, people were saying the ball came off his bat different. He skyrocketed up prospect lists, cementing himself as one of the game's top prospects. Last year, at combined AA and AAA, Rushing slashed 271, 385, 512. The OPS between the two leagues is pretty negligible, with the 907 OPS in AA and an 891 OPS in AAA. That was with a larger sample size in AAA. Like a significantly larger sample size, about twice as many games. So that 891 is for real. He walked a little less at AAA, but he struck out at the same rate, so it's not like he was necessarily getting overmatched there. The bat was so good, they needed to get him into the lineup. The Dodgers asked him to play a little bit of left field as opposed to his natural catching position. He did end up spending the last 6 games, though, back as the catcher for the AAA Comets. Why that is, we'll get to that in just a second. Unfortunately for Rushing, the Dodgers have a player by the name of Will Smith. That all-star catcher they locked up for with a 10-year contract. No one expects Will Smith to stay as the catcher for the duration of that contract. I personally expect him to last about 3 years behind the dish before he moves to either third base to replace Max Muncy or first base to replace Freddie Freeman once his contract is up. Dave Roberts did reveal that Will Smith has been dealing with a bone bruise in his left ankle after a slight attempt against the Yankees last June. He also said that Rushing will focus on catching and some first base this year. Why he might be focusing on catching, I think it has something to do with that injury Will Smith is dealing with. Up until the Yankee series, Will Smith was raking with an 846 OPS, one of the top marks among catchers in Major League Baseball. After that, though, his production took a complete nosedive, and he finished with a 691 OPS in Major League Baseball. Now, there are documented woes that Smith deals with in the second half of a Major League season. I do think injuries play a role in that. Last year, like they just mentioned, he has a lingering bone bruise in his left ankle. The year before that, he was dealing with some concussions and a rib injury that certainly impacted his ability at the plate. This year, though, Smith has appeared in 2 spring training games, and he's caught in both games, which shows that the Dodgers are at least somewhat confident in his ankle, that it's not necessarily hindering him from catching. That ankle injury, though, could open up a spot for Dalton Rushing. Will Smith said he's not sure why the ankle hasn't fully healed yet after it's been some time. They're going to have to do a little bit more testing. He said that they're going to look into, why it hasn't healed. If they find something, maybe he needs to spend some time on the IL. Also, we know this team isn't super worried about March, April, and May. They're definitely more worried about that October run. So if Will Smith's ankle isn't 100% or is even close to 100%, they might just, have him spend some time on the IL. That opens the door for Dalton Rushing to then split time at the catching position with Austin Barnes. While he's up splitting time at the catching position, the Dodgers need a left-handed bat off the bench. So the days that Austin Barnes is catching, Dalton Rushing then could have opportunities in the later stages of the game as a left-handed bat, in pinch hit situations. I just want to point out, I wouldn't advocate for Rushing to be on the Major League roster solely as a bench bat. I do think he needs regular at-bats and definitely, more reps behind the plate, working on his ability, his game calling ability. So I would, if he's up catching, he's a bench bat. I wouldn't have him just as a bench bat. Now, there's a third option or third reason why the Dodgers might need Dalton Rushing services this year, and that's Freddie Freeman's ankle. We know that he underwent offseason ankle surgery after rolling it in prior to the NLDS against the Padres. Apparently, he tore some ligaments, and it was much worse than we were led on. Surprising the Dodgers not being forthcoming with their player injuries. That ankle, Freddie has said he's going to need to have taped up until the All-Star break. He's never played on a taped ankle. The whole taped ankle thing isn't a big deal. What is a big deal is it says that ankle isn't 100% right now. We know Freddie Freeman's an Iron Man. I believe he said in the past his rule is he doesn't want to take a day off until the team has clinched the division. However, in order to keep Freddie healthy, Dave might say, hey, we need you to take a couple more days off here and there. Dalton Rushing has played some first base. He played first base while he was at Louisville behind Henry Davis. He also played some first base, I believe, in 2023 at the high A level. Now, he's a couple years removed from doing that, but it is an option. So if you combine all three of those things, Will Smith's injury, needing a left-handed bench bat, and Freddie's injury, that could lead to some significant playing time for the Dodgers' top prospect. And if he does well enough in those at-bats, in those opportunities, then tough conversations might need to be had. Don't just take my word for it, though. Listen to an excerpt from the All Dodgers podcast that Clint and I did back in January with Dodgers prospect knower Casey Porter. Again, this was done in January, so there was a little more left field talk because Dave hadn't come out and said that Dalton Rushing isn't going to play any left field. But within that talk, just use that as evidence to Dalton Rushing's athleticism and his want to play pretty much any position just to make the big league roster.
Before we do get into that excerpt that Kevin was talking about, I first want to tell you guys, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of stuff. Like this video, give it a like, mash that, just destroy that like button for Kevin Skinner on the video so far talking Dalton Rushing. But I do want to tell you before we get to Casey Porter, I'm going to tell you about BetOnline. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Of course, you know this, but I'm going to tell you again, either way, whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is the ultimate game day companion. They have the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC. BetOnline, it needs to continue being your number one sports betting source this year. From every three-pointer to every hat trick, BetOnline, they have you covered with odds, stats, and more from every game. They have every play there, and of course, ideally for you, every win. So BetOnline, the game starts here, and let's go ahead and roll that beautiful bean footage. You mentioned Dalton Rushing, and I agree with you. If we're talking about anybody that is among the untouchable sphere for the Dodgers, it's got to be this kid, Dalton Rushing. It's funny, I wait this long, we all wait this long to get into the show and really dive into Dalton, but there's also so much intriguing pitching, but we got to talk Rushing. Made the transition, moving some outfield in there, still catching a little bit. Could he be... It's multifaceted. It's like, one, is 2025 the year of Dalton Rushing? And I think so. But is he somebody that could be a dude that goes and plays some left field and catch for the Dodgers for years to come? Like, how is the learning curve for him in left field, and how is his catching ability enough to at least spell Will Smith, 2 or 3 times a week?
Plus arm behind the plate, plus athlete. So the catching part of it, absolutely no problem whatsoever. Matter of fact, very similar to Will Smith. I saw Will Smith quite a bit throw down from Oklahoma City, and his ball kind of naturally tails to first base. The arm's going to be, matter of fact, Chris Gutierrez, the same coach I was talking about, mentioned his plus arm whenever I interviewed him. That's on Dodgers Daily if you want to go check it. It's a wonderful conversation. Chris just does a great job. And so he was translating that to Dalton in left field, that if you take that arm to left field, he's going to have a plus arm for a left fielder. He is a good athlete, and we know he can absolutely just mash the ball. I mean, his exit velos are really nice. And the thing about Dalton, too, that I think makes him way more open to positional versatility, one is he just wants to get on the field. But if you go back to his days at Louisville, Henry Davis was the number 1 draft pick out of the 20, I think it's a 2022 draft. Not a first-round draft pick, the very first pick of the draft. And Dalton Rushing played behind him at Louisville until his last year there. So he only got to catch 1 year. So he played a lot of first base. So he's used to having a mitt or a glove in his hand. And I'll say this, I think in left field, I haven't seen enough of him. And I say that confidently because nobody's seen enough of Dalton Rushing in left field to actually answer any questions definitively as far as where is he at in his progression of becoming a left fielder. So I'll say this, I think he needs, if you're going to put him in left field in LA, he needs quite a bit of time still in Oklahoma City to play left field. Okay. If you're going to catch him, send him tomorrow. That would be my statement.
I like that.
Deuce believes here in the comment that Rushing is completely blocked. You know, with Will Smith going to be behind the back, be the backstop for the foreseeable future, possibly. You know, but how long Will Smith is going to be the shortstop every day, we don't know. You know, a lot of people speculate he'll move to first base when Freddie's gone, or maybe he's going to be the future third baseman as he came up with you know, OKC and everything. Do you think that Rushing is being blocked, or do you think it's something where they could move him to left field for the short term and then move him back to catcher in the long term in like 3-ish years when they move Smith off of the catching position?
So I'll kind of answer a question with a question. What type of return do you think Dalton Rushing can get the Dodgers right now? Clint?
Oof.
It'd be pretty nice, wouldn't it?
I mean, it'd be at least one major league ready player.
Yeah, if you go
right?
Dalton and one, you can probably go out there and get just about anybody. I can't imagine. I imagine teams are very much clamoring for somebody the Dodgers feel that high about because Dodgers no ball.
So if the Dodgers are not willing to trade him right now at a trade value peak that is off the charts, then they obviously don't think he's blocked. And I'll say this, if they don't think he's blocked, then I won't think he's blocked, right? Yes, you can look at Will Smith and say, well, he's going to be the catcher for 10 years or whatever it may be. I have actually talked to Dalton Rushing. I asked him about positional versatility. He kind of gave that confident smile he always does, and he says, give me a glove in a couple of weeks and we'll be fine, right? So, I mean, whatever you want to do with Dalton Rushing, fine. The whole it goes back to T-ball, right? If you can hit, then they're going to figure out a way to get you in the lineup. And that is Dalton Rushing. Plus, he's a plus athlete with a good arm. And also, the guy that he's blocked by, Will Smith, you mentioned it too. He is a really, I think what goes underrated about Will Smith, he's a great athlete. So the transition away from catcher to me for Will Smith, if that ever happened, would not be a difficult one.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, the kind of, we'll call it it's not quiet confidence out of Dalton Rushing. Like you look at him, you see the smile. And it's like, yeah, I got that. And you and I talked. We were messaging last year about like Kyle Hurt a little bit, and Kyle kind of has that like I'll drink all the beer in the bar and go fight everybody in the bar. Like Dalton Rushing just seems like that dude. He can go in the back and sort of be the Fonz and know he's the man, but still he actually has something to back it up. Very excited to see him continue to progress. Hopefully make some sort of impact on the Dodgers in 2025. I agree. I don't think he's blocked. Dodgers are telling us there's a space for him somewhere, and if he can find that way to being that somebody that can play some left field, play some catch, maybe a little throwback Paul LaDuca for us old heads. We saw a little bit of that, a little bit of first base. Dalton, if you could just be in the lineup. That's the most important thing. Be in the lineup wherever the hell they need him that day, and I think he can do that.
That was Casey Porter. You can find him at Dodgers Daily on YouTube or at Dodger_Daily on Twitter. I'm not saying Rushing is a shoo-in to break camp with the team, despite his talent saying otherwise. However, things are falling in place for a roster spot to open up for him. You know, like I said, Smith's injury, Freeman's injury, need for a left-handed bat opens the door, it cracks it open, and he could just fully kick down the door if in those opportunities he shows why he's the game's top catching prospect or one of them. So, thanks for listening. Does he break camp with the roster? If so, why? Leave a comment below on your thoughts on Dalton Rushing and why he should break the roster. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more Dodgers content. My name's Kevin, and I will see you next time.